Hi, this is Dr. Everson. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Qsortware, which is an online tool for conducting Q studies, which are studies about subjectivity. And I'll show you both how to get an account and how to use the software. There's some things that are a little bit tricky about it, so I wanted to show that to you. It's entirely done online. It's so that you can collect data online from students or whoever you're collecting data from using a Qsort. And this particular software, so you're aware, is best used on a computer screen when they are doing the sort. Okay, so you want to go ahead and just do this join us today if you're going to, if you want to get an account, and that will allow you to get an account. Okay, and I'm going to come over to my account. Once you have an account and you log in, it's going to look like this each time. You have over here three things, obviously log out. Invite participant is for if you want to send emails, links to participants to do the survey, then you'll use that button. The settings button is where you do everything else, including create your survey. So let me just click on that and show you. When you click on that, you're going to see all the surveys I've ever made using this particular tool. And you will see this public button basically means that there is a generic link that I can give people so that they can use this survey. And you typically only want that done with one at a time, because anyone you give the link to will see all the surveys that you have available, checked available here using the public link. Disable just disables them, and so that's what that's for. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use this interface here to create a new, what we call procedure. Your procedure is basically your whole study. And within that procedure or study, you're going to have individual tasks for them to do, like a Qsort, maybe some demographic questions, anything like that, are going to all be within the one procedure. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a name. Let's just call it Test Survey for YouTube. Okay, and that's my name for it. The other is just a caption that will be seen by the participant. So whatever I want to call that. Okay, doesn't matter. Can change it later. Okay, it saved successfully. I just click OK. If I scroll down now, you'll see it's there. And what I'm going to do now is click on it, click on Edit Procedure. And when I click on Edit Procedure, you see now I can change those two names I just gave it. This is where I'm going to start building my survey. What happens is the survey is built with each section of the survey essentially being called a test. Okay, a Qsort is a test. If you want to ask a set of demographic questions, it's called a test. If you want to have just an information screen, that's called a test. If you want to have a Likert scale that they respond to, that's another test. And so you can have as many of these as you want, and you build them, and then you can reorder them within here. What you'll do is you'll just click on Add, and you'll see you have these various kinds of tests that you can create. Qsort is going to be the Qsort. We'll spend the most time on that, but I will show you how to do the others. Likert test input screen is where you would put anything demographic. You can give them fill in the blank, multiple choice type questions using this input screen. The splash screen is really just a text screen, so it's good for instructions, okay? So I'm going to start off with a splash screen because that's often what I do first, or I can choose, from one that I've done recently. And I just click on splash screen, click Add. Okay, this will just typically be my welcome screen. I'm going to go ahead and rename it Welcome, okay? And I'm going to type in here, welcome to my study. It should take you about 20 minutes, whatever information I want, is my initial introduction to them. Now, if you want a consent document, which you usually should, you're going to, the best way to do it, you cannot put images in here. So depending on what your IRB board wants you to do, you could either type it in here manually, or you could use it. What I typically do is I do a hyperlink. So I'm just going to read the study consent document here. I'll just say something like that, and then I highlight the words that I want to be the active link, and click on the link and put in the link there. And what I'll typically do is, it could be a Google Doc, or I'll often use a Dropbox link to my particular document for them to look at there. And then you can put on here whatever else you want. Okay, continuation implies your consent, something like that. Now, unfortunately, this will come out and look about that size font on their screen, and I cannot get this doesn't work. You can make it larger here, save it, but it'll revert back to the smaller size continually. So you think it's saved, it's not. It'll revert back. If I go here and I go edit, and I want to look at it again, you see it's reverted back to that smaller size. I don't know why. It's a glitch in the program. That is what it is. So anyway, I use that splash screen type test, as they call it, for instructions at the beginning or at any point between other components, or I'll often put one near the end for various reasons. There is a default thank you screen that comes at the end. Okay, the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to add maybe an input screen. Okay, that's where I'll collect demographic type information. It'll just look like this. I'll give it a name. And I'll use this feature here too if I want comments after they've done the survey, because they can put in comments. And just click add, and you see it's going to look like this. This is where you put your question, and this is where you choose the type of answer they can give. So for example, I can put something like, what is your gender? I can click here. There's a just double click on that so you can get the drop down, and you'll see the options. Now, I don't use their gender option because it doesn't have an option, as far as I know, unless it's changed recently, for non-binary or any other option like that. It's just going to be male, female. And so, and the ethnicity often is not laid out how I want, so I don't often use that. Same with age. What I typically do is just use these two options, text or choice. Text allows them to fill in, and it can be used for long comments as well. Okay, so that's something to be aware of. Often I'll do another one of these types of input screens after the Qsort, so they can put in comments. So if I put text, it will let them be as long as they want to write. As far as I've come across, I haven't come up against any limits on it. And the other thing is choice, which is like multiple choice. So let's say I want this multiple choice. I just hit choice. When I hit enter, this pops up. It allows me to put in my choices here, okay, with commas between them. Male, female, non-binary. I like to put, when I have a survey, I like to put I prefer to self-describe and then a text box. There's not an easy way to do that here. You could put I prefer to self-describe and then have another question that basically said, if you prefer to self-describe, fill in here. But that becomes a little bit cumbersome for the people who that doesn't apply to. So I'm just putting other in for now. Okay, but you may have another thing you prefer to do. Okay, so that gives me my multiple choice questions. Then the next thing I'm going to do is add. Just click add to get another question. Maybe I want to do how old are you? And I'm going to click here. I don't know what the age option does, whether it like verifies. I've always just put in text and allowed them to fill that in, and I've never had trouble doing that myself. okay? I would assume the email option one will verify that they've put in an email. However, you don't need to do that because it asks for the email at the end of the survey, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So you can just put as many questions in as you want. Actually, I think there might be a limit on 10 questions, but if so, then you just do another one of these screens, okay? Save. Okay, so I've got those now. Now I'm going to add, let's say that I want to add a Likert test. You know, basically a Likert scale. I'll just add that. And I'll just put fictional Likert scale. And then this is going to be just my instructions that they'll get. Instructions for completion. Just whatever you're going to write there, you know, indicate the degree to which you agree or disagree with the question or so forth. Now in these two boxes, on the left box, you're going to put the statements that they agree or disagree with or whatever, and over here you put the, you know, strongly disagree, whatever options you're giving them, the response categories. So let's just put in, I'll just do 2 of them to show you. Vanilla, okay, and over here I'm going to put whatever I like, pizza, okay. So whatever the statements are, you can just fill in as many as you need there. You can't just like upload a whole bunch from some other document. You can copy and paste one at a time in from another document, but that's really the limit of that. Then over here, you're just going to put the responses and, you know, I'll just put the 5 in that I often do. And you can see the score there. That's really, you know, the point value you want to assign to that for when you code the responses. I'll probably put neither agree nor disagree. That's what I usually do, but for the sake of it being faster to type, I'm going to put neutral this time and strongly agree. And so right over here, this is where you're going to put like, you can put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever you want, however you want to code those. Okay, you're going to put them in there. Okay, now you're going to hit save. Now, the important thing is, see how it pops up with any of these screens? It needs to say save successfully, otherwise you lose your work. It has not saved successfully. If it doesn't pop up with that, it means there's something you have missed that you needed to enter, and so it's not going to save it. It just won't do it unless you've included everything it wants you to include, okay? So that's something to be aware of, particularly when you get into doing the Qsort itself, because that is very time consuming. So let's do add Qsort test next. Okay, this test name is, I'll just put practice Qsort. Okay, now here you put the instructions you want them to see for the initial sort they do, that initial sort they do into 3 piles. Here you put the more detailed for the second, you know, more refined sort they do. So instructions here, and then final sort instructions will go here. So just fill that out how you want. And again, I have trouble with changing the font size and so forth. You can put links in if that helped you for any reason, but you can't put pictures. Now, what you're going to do here is you're going to tell it all the sorting boxes you want it to have. That is, it's going to be the boxes that are both for the initial sort and for the final sort. I'm just going to add a bunch here and then I'll show you how to do it. Okay, so you add them all in. So let's say that I want my initial sort to be into 3 boxes. So I'm going to click initial sort for these first 3, and I'm going to put however I'm going to label the boxes, okay? Middle, relevance, or unsure, and then most relevant. Now, so that's that, and because I've clicked initial sort, these 3 are going to come up the first time they sort the items. They're going to get those, okay? And don't worry about these items number. That will then not apply to that first sort. You can just leave the ones there. You have to put something in the score box, even though we don't really score those first ones, just for the software to be happy. So just put anything in those, okay? And then we're going to go down and we're going to do the final sort. So however you want to call the categories, here you're going to do that. In order. This is probably maybe not how I want to do it, but I'm just typing it in here. Now, just to get them in. What you're going to put here where it says items number, this is very important, you don't forget it, is how many they're allowed to put in each of those sorted box, okay? So I'm just going to, well, I probably wouldn't have 18. I meant to, you have to be careful because by default it's 1, and so it gives you whatever that is, okay? So that's how many items go in the box, go there. Okay, how many they need to sort into each of them. So I have a total of, 24 items here, okay? So I'm going to need to, over here, I'll add my 24 items under cards. So I'll need to make sure that matches. Here again, it doesn't matter what you put in that column for, whoops. I clicked and dragged that. I don't want to do that. I can reorder that way. And it doesn't matter for the score, but it does matter that you've checked those boxes and don't check them down here. And then here you're going to need to put in the score. You want it to be whatever scoring system you want. This is the typical system. Okay. And I'll usually have more than 5 categories, but that's just to make this go a little faster. And then over here, I'm going to add the cards. This is the most time-consuming part. That's the statements they sort. I have to type in everyone individually or copy and paste individually. No way to upload or copy and paste them as a set or anything like that. So I just click on each one and, you know, type in whatever it is that you want to put. That doesn't really go with relevance, that would go with truth, but at any rate, you put all your statements in here, and you can, again, reorder them. They will be given the items in the order that you put them in here, so you want to be careful of that. Okay, and now I can go ahead and save this before I've put them all in. See how it says text saved successfully? That is good. I must have that, or else it didn't save it and I've lost my work. I can go back to it by clicking on and editing it, changing anything I want to do as I go, okay? Most often, if it doesn't save correctly, I've forgotten to put something in these columns here correctly, okay? That's most often what the problem is. Something here I didn't put in correctly. So be sure you get that all in correctly. Now, I've got them in here. What I will typically do now is I'll typically add another screen that's comments, various types, you know, so I might add what they call the input screen, where I can ask questions like, were there any items that you thought should have been included, any statements should have been included that weren't, or comment on the procedure, or tell me more, you know, about what you're thinking, whatever. It's a little bit, you know, non-optimal compared to doing this face-to-face, and that you can't sit there and say, why did you put those 3 in the high category, and why did you put these 3 in the lowest category? Because they're not going to be looking at it at the same time, so they may not remember. So you can't really ask those kinds of questions very easily. But you can ask for comments that would be more reasonable for them to remember on the next screen, you know, because they won't get it at the same time. So they know what's going on, okay? So I typically will add that. And then after that, once I have everything I wanted as part of this study included, then I'll typically do another splash screen, which is again just text. And I'll say thank you or whatever. But I will tell them this, okay? On the next screen, you will be asked for your email address. And I will say, you don't have to say this, but I will say, you are welcome to put in a fictitious email address, a fake email address, whatever words you want to use, if you wish. However, the software requires you to put in an email address for you to save your responses. So they have to put in an email address for it to save the responses, okay? If you send out a generic link to people, it doesn't do that if you send out an invitation that already has their email attached. But if you send a generic link out, which is what I do more often, then it will ask for their email address at the end. There's no way around that. They have to put in some form of email address in order for the responses to be saved. So I always put in there that splash screen that just says, you know, the software requires you to enter an email address to save your responses. You're welcome to put in a fake email address if you wish. You will not be emailed, something along those lines. Okay, and I do that with a splash screen, which is just text. Okay, so I put that in. They will see all of these things here come up one at a time, and that's it. Now, the important thing too is don't just leave it here. You've got to hit save here. Okay, click OK, click save here, and click OK. I always tell my students save all the way out. In other words, every screen to the end that you see, click save, and then you're okay to close it. Okay, that is basically how you program this. Now, if you want to invite a participant using participant's email address, you can use this particular option. Sometimes I use it. I send myself an email to practice to make sure it works right. But all you do is and this has got in all these ones that are from the past. I'm just going to remove them. I don't need them anymore. You're going to click on invite. Okay. You're going to type in the email address, subject, content, okay? And then click on the one you want them to get. Any one. It doesn't have to be clicked public like that option, but any of the ones you want. So I just, click on the one I want. I put in an email address here, subject, write them an email. And I have to do that one at a time for each person I'm sending it to. Of course, that's not too big a deal because usually we're looking at, smaller sample sizes for this kind of study. So it doesn't take real long. But I'll often just copy and paste what goes in here, okay, when I send it to them. Okay, so that's how you set it up. And again, now I'm going to show you how you send it out as well with a generic link. So that's how you send it out with a specified link through their email. If you want to send it out with a generic link, every one of us who has an account has this set up for them. This right here is my username that I selected when I set up my account. So you will replace what I put here with your username, okay? And when you do that, it will go to this website that looks like this. You will have here a little circle and a subtitle for every single study that you listed as public. So if you have multiple going at once, that's problematic, right? Because people might go into the wrong studies. If you don't care about that, then I guess it doesn't matter. But I typically just have one going at a time. And so this is the link right here. I have to give them this as my anonymous link. And sometimes I will use, get a bit.ly or a shortened or use a shortener to give them the link that's a shortener instead of giving them this because that looks kind of funny. But give them this link and tell them then click on the circle that comes up. Okay, that's what they need to do. Now I'm going to go ahead. This is an active study running right now, but I'm going to go ahead, click on it so you can see what it looks like. Again, so this right there, just give them that URL right there and tell them when it comes up, click on the circle, okay, with the name of the study. You can see this is my introduction right here to it. Okay, I've got a link right here to my consent document and some information there. Okay. This is what it looks like for them to respond to the demographics, so that input screen. And so I can just put in there, whatever I want. There isn't any way to change this. Well, whichever order you put them in, when you ask it to do a multiple choice questions, the first one will be kind of listed first as the demographic, and I can just choose whatever I want here. and, you know, choose any of the options that I want, okay? And whatever I want, I can put there, and then this is what a fill in, another one that fill in, and it can be quite long. If someone wants to put in a long explanation, it's going to let them keep typing and so forth. But if I try to just hit OK, it's going to give me an error, so they can put none or NA or whatever they want. Okay, so then I click OK. And the first thing that I've designed for it to come up is this Likert scale. So this is what the Likert test looks like, and the indicate the degree to which you agree with each of the following at the present time, and can just go through. I'm just going to click a bunch of these so that I can show you what the Qsort looks like here. Okay, continue. Okay, and then ask me another question, and now's my Qsort. So this is what it looks like, and this is really hard for them to do on a phone screen. It looks really, it's hard for them to see what's going on. Maybe a larger tablet might work, but I always tell them it's best done on a computer screen. And make sure I tell them, and here you see I've underlined clicking and dragging. They've got to click and drag the statements to the particular categories. And I'm just going to put them random places so that I can take you to the next screen. This is of course, the initial sort. And sometimes that happens where things get highlighted and then it's harder to drag them. But they can go anywhere, you know. Doesn't matter how many are in each category for this. They can put them all in the middle or whatever, and you wouldn't be able to stop them, you know. It doesn't have any guidelines for that, for the initial sort. So I just go through, sort them all. Okay. And it's not going to let you hit this continue button, which takes you to the more refined resort till they're all done. And again, it's just clicking and dragging. Works very nicely on a computer with a mouse, but it does not work so nicely on a small screen. So really important to encourage them to use a computer. And that is a little bit of a problem because you know, people then may not bother to do it because they don't want to go get on their computer. So that can impact your response rate if you have doing it this way. But it's kind of the best I've come up with at the moment, because the best tool I found, other than doing it face-to-face in person, which of course is the best. The other way to do it, another way to do this from a distance, if you don't want to deal with software, is to, you know, mail them the cards and then get on Zoom or something with them to talk them through it, just as if you were in person. You can also do this with them over Zoom, where you send them to the link to them and have them get on and do it with you there, answering questions, talking them through it. An advantage of that is the data is all entered. You don't have to do any data entry when it's done, because it's all entered here into the computer already. So that's something that can be helpful. You know, while if you did it, you know, when they do it on cards, you have to worry about data entry afterwards. Okay, so continue. Now this is the way this will look. It'll be their categories, and I'll usually tell them start with the least true, then do the most true, and then do the middle ones. This is what I'll usually tell them. And then I'll have them, and then they just drag them in the categories. You see that it tells the title of the category. It also tells in parentheses how many they can do, but also there's that in red down at the bottom. Okay, so that's really helpful to getting the right number. I'm just going to put them in, well, randomly. I'm not going to save this data because this is a real study and I don't want to mess it up. But actually, I won't go ahead and finish it. What you'll do is you'll just go ahead and they'll sort them into these categories, and then when they hit continue, that's where I usually have a screen where I ask them some comments, and then after that, usually I have that instruction screen that says, you know, on the next screen you'll be asked your email address. Just, you can make up a fake one, but you need to put one in for your data to be saved and so forth. If I just hit go out of this, it won't be saved. So that's what this looks like. I think it's a useful tool. It's really helpful. Once your data is collected, you click on settings, okay? And let's say I click on this prayer one right here. Click on view submissions, and what you'll see here is how many people, that's how many responded so far, how much time it took them to do the survey, okay? Which sometimes is a clue if they weren't really thinking, if it's too short. And it'll have the responses there, but you can't really look at them. What you do is you click on, you know, this button to select all of your data exported as a CSV. Okay, when you export it as a CSV, I'm going to do that and then just open it. Comes out in a zip file. I'll open it and show you here in just a second. Comes out in a file that kind of looks like this. This will have their email address. A lot of those are fake. See, none of your business, okay? This is responses to my demographic questions, some of my other questions, and so forth. Now, something to be aware of that happens here is whenever there's a text entry, if they type something in there that is fairly long, like has happened here, sometimes it'll continue into the next cell and shift all the other cells to the right. Okay, so that ends up happening, and see, I've got, see, for some of them, this is their, they put all those as zeros, I guess. Okay, the way they shorted them. You see there's some that are shifted, that one's shifted way because he put in some long comments. And so you have to clean that up, and you have to move your cells over. It's for that reason I like longer. Things that are longer I will typically put at the end instead of, you know, after the Qsort instead of before it, so that it doesn't mess up my Qsort columns, although it's fairly easy to fix, particularly if you have a small amount of data. So that's it. That's my overview. Feel free to comment if you have any questions or suggestions. And good luck.